the happiest place on earth, actually. You know what's so funny? For a country that has been going through a lot for the past 27 years, there is a certain joy. When you get to the capital, you're just like, okay, it's so messy, but it's so nice.
Yeah.
Like, people are always very, very welcoming. And I guess maybe it's because our culture is just all about, let's live today, tomorrow is another day. And which in some ways it kind of
it's true.
It kind of makes up for the bad that is happening. But if I can tell him one thing, is that's home.
It's home.
Home is home.
Salam and hello everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Lilly Piper, and tonight, for the first time this year, we are filming a live episode in my home with some friends and families. So, karibuni sana everyone. This is here that you're here. Welcome, welcome. This is a very special episode as we wrap up season 1 of 2023. We just want to say a huge thank you from the team. You have been rocking with us for 26 episodes this year, half of the year. Every Tuesday, you have been here showing up with us, and we are so very grateful. So we're going to take a little break for a few weeks, rest our creative minds. We have a few plans that we're percolating for the last quarter of the year. We cannot wait to come back in September with some new content. But tonight, we are just filming a special episode to celebrate this season and celebrate all the stories of joy, of justice, of salam, and of hello. So tonight, to help me celebrate the stories that we've been telling, is a new friend that we've just made, Jean Tristan Mianze. Did I say that right? So close, so close. Jean is somebody who is so close to so many of the stories that we've been telling this year. Somebody who's a part of the diaspora of the Central African Republic, who has found his story taking him to Paris, to Nairobi, back home again. In fact, he told me that while we may call Central African Republic CAR, those at home call it Centrafrique. Yeah, Centrafrique, which I think my French was très bon.
Juste un peu.
Juste un peu. Ah!
Pas beaucoup,
Okay,
juste un peu.
well, I don't think it's going to improve over the duration of this episode, but maybe in season 2, I'll come back with a bit more French. But Jean's story is one that warms my heart. It's a story of pursuing family, of connection, of love, of hope, of a future. And he's been here in Nairobi for the last 15 years. His professional work is in logistics, but he's also a father of a little boy, which he loves and is deeply dedicated to. And his story has taken him not just here to Nairobi, but also back home. And so I'm so grateful that he's here to tell us a little bit about his journey. We've never had anyone here on the show from Centrafrique.
Actually, it's quite common for people in Kenya not to have met anyone from the Central African Republic.
You are the first. You are the first, my friend. You're one of one.
I'm quite unique, though.
One of un.
Yeah.
Oui.
Le seul, unique.
Oui. We might do this whole interview in French. Should we? No. Just kidding. Okay, just kidding. That would be tricky.
Yeah.
So I've given a light touch to Jean's story, but I think the best way to start would be to ask him to introduce himself a little bit further and tell us how he got to Nairobi 15 years ago.
Oh, my. Interesting story. So 2007, actually, finished school and was in the Central African Republic while my mom was working in Afghanistan. And after finishing school, I didn't want to go to school anymore because I started working. You start making money. So you're like, why do I need to go to university anyway? And then one day my mom calls me and she's like, if you still love me, you have to go to school.
Wow. I just have to pause and say, I also have a son who happens to be here today, who I've heard these same words from.
He doesn't want to go to school.
But I've not tried that line, if you love me.
I mean, if you try it, he's going to go back to school.
It's going to work?
Yeah. Because that was the thing.
Where is he today? Okay, but continue.
Yeah.
This is not about me,
this is
about you.
If you love me, you have to go back to school. So I was like, okay, fine. Coming from a French-speaking country, I've always wanted to learn English, you know. So I told my mom, okay, I want to go to an English-speaking country. And then she tells me, you know, you're going to Kenya, 2007. So I go to a cyber cafe.
Well, can I ask you when in 2007? This is pre-election?
It was actually pre-election. It was around April 2007. Okay. So I go into a cyber cafe and I'm like, okay, Google Kenya. Next thing I'm seeing is lions, giraffe, safaris. So I call my mom and I'm like, what's the plan? Are you sending me to the bush? You know, because I mean, I didn't know anything about Kenya. I didn't even know there was a country that existed and which was called Kenya. So she told me, no, you know, it's an English-speaking country. Pack your things. I'm sending the ticket and you go to Kenya. So I'm like, okay, cool. So June 2007, I leave home. There was no direct flight back then coming to Kenya. So I had to leave home Bongi, which is the capital, go to Cameroon, Douala, take another flight to Addis, layover in Addis, and then from Addis to Nairobi.
That's a long journey.
That's a long journey.
And you were maybe 18, 19? This is post-high school?
I was actually 20.
You were 20.
Yeah, I was 19, young. Turning 20 in December. So where the story, even the travel became hectic is because, you know, from Cameroon to Addis, the language changed from French to English. So I get to Addis and the lady asked for my passport. But, you know, like, the accent was okay, so I could understand passport, you know, just put it together and then give the document. Then land to in Nairobi and totally different accent. So the lady is there asking for my passport and I'm just like, oh my, what is she asking for? And then she had to do this passport. That was the funniest thing, but I was so nervous because I already found it was going to be difficult trying to communicate in English and being alone in Kenya and everything. So, but yeah, ended up coming out of the airport, was picked by the people because I was supposed to do my pre-university course in English. And yeah, that's how it started, June 2007.
Many of us, all of us in this room, I'm sure, know exactly what happened later in 2007. But I want to go, before we go what happened later in the year, I want to go a little bit further back to your curiosity around English. Did you not see a future for yourself around a French or Francophone or even a mother tongue opportunity?
Let's just say I have a bit of hate and love relationship with French. Not because it's a bad language, but I guess it's because of my personal experience and having been in France for a couple of years in the past, and my experience wasn't the best. It was actually a rebellious mentality to speak another language. Early 2000s, you know, there was the hip-hop culture, the music and everything, and English was the thing, you know. So yeah, rebelling against the French and you know, getting a different language and it was that was the thing that actually triggered me wanting to speak English back then.
And so you find yourself here in 2007. Looking back at that moment, can you take us back to how that felt? Those first few days and weeks in Nairobi, out of place.
Yeah. Out of place, very foreign. Everything was different. The language, the weather. Come from a very tropical type of weather. We do not have the June, July winter.
It's cold, yeah.
we don't have it. When I came out, I was picked from the airport, taken to the college, and then taken into the hostel. And I couldn't figure out how the instant shower was working. Because back home, we do not have instant shower, we have boilers.
Okay, what do you mean instant shower for the heat?
On, off for the water.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, that was something absolutely new because I looked at it and I'm like, what is that, you know? So I couldn't figure out how to switch it on because the switch, I think, was hidden somewhere. So I showered with cold water and then the following day I was sick. So I hated it. And I called my mom and I'm like, you know what? If that was your plan to kill me, let me go. That was,
and what was your mom's response? I have to know. Because now I'm invested into the mother's side of the story.
She said, you're not going to die and you will stay there. And I was like, okay.
Go and learn your English.
So I was sick for like some few days, like 2-3 days, but ended up being okay after that.
Were you here then throughout the rest of the year once the election happens? No,
because actually the reason why I left before the post-election violence was very simple. Because of the experience with the cold water, I told myself I'm not going to stay in Kenya. And my mom happened to have shifted from Afghanistan, and she was moved to Khartoum in Sudan. So I was like, I haven't seen you for a year, and I want to come and see you.
I miss you, Mom.
Yeah, so I played the mommy boy, type of thing. So I ended up going to Khartoum in October, because I also lied to her and told her, in Kenya, they only study for 3 months. So now we're on holiday till next year.
I just want to point out to you now that you have a child. These things come back to you, by the way. So all these things, just remember them, huh?
Well, the mom will suffer, not really me, because I will just be like, I've heard that somewhere. So
you went to Khartoum?
So I went to Khartoum, stayed in Khartoum all through mid-October to December. Then December, went home with my mom, because it was Christmas holiday, so we all went back home. When I went home and I was watching the news, that's when I was watching about the post-election violence. And unfortunately for me, it was a good thing, because I was like, I'm not going back to Kenya. I'm staying home, and I don't like it. The language is hard, the weather is hard and everything. So let me just stay home. But it didn't go as planned.
So now you have to tell us how.
Because in February, after everything was quiet, my mom left, and then she called me and she's like, you're going back to Kenya? And I said, hell no, I'm not going back to Kenya. And she pulled the same thing again, if you don't go back, then forget I'm your mother. And I'm just like, okay, all right, fine, let me go back to Kenya. And I came back. But this time I came back telling myself, okay, since you want me to be here, I'm actually going to master and enjoy the place.
So let's talk a little bit about the French and the difference and the divides that creates, because language is so much a part of our identity. It helps us express ourselves, and oftentimes for me it's quite frustrating when I watch a traditional news media and someone's talking about their experience, and if English is not their first language, it still is almost always the language that they're being interviewed in, and you can tell they're not fully expressing themselves, So for you, at what point did you find that language barrier had you'd broken through, or have you? Do you feel even now that you've broken through?
You actually, funny enough, what is so funny about speaking French and English, actually you start picking a lot of things that are lacking from both of the languages. 16 years down the line, having a wife who is fluent in English, friends who are fluent in English, there's still that language barrier, and it comes in a lot of things actually. Not in the traditional communication, the way we think it.
Sure.
One of the things that I was talking about with my wife actually last week, was the fact that as a French speaker, I will never say things in a direct way.
For example?
For example, if I'm complaining about something, I will not say, I hate this color.
Yeah.
I will always try to be like, but this color doesn't really match or complement, it doesn't necessarily suit. But English people are like, I hate it. But but for a French person, you don't say, I hate it. You have to say, well, it's very pleasing, but not too appealing to me.
Interesting. And so those things still show up.
Yeah,
do you feel now when you want to express yourself, especially with a partner who does not speak your same first language, how do you argue?
Well, you have to find the language that works, actually.
Are you arguing in your head and then you're like saying...
Sometimes you have to prepare the argument, like you prepare it and then you wake up in the morning and you check your phone and you're like, okay, those are the points, so that you don't forget it.
Right.
But I don't think, genuinely my personal experience, I will say you will never get over language barrier. It doesn't matter how many languages you speak, because each and every language has a culture behind it. And that's the thing we do not talk about. When we start learning a language, we learn the language because we want to communicate. But what we forget is that communication is as good as fitting into a culture.
Absolutely.
So,
It's true. And they say that you actually, at least with parents, that you correct your children in your mother tongue.
Yeah.
And if you have to be careful though, because if you only correct them in your mother tongue, then they'll think the mother tongue is only for correction
exactly.
and not for affection. So you're right. There's a culture behind
There's
the
a
language
culture.
that becomes
There is.
tricky. So, you know, you mentioned your wife earlier, who happens to be a part of our producing team.
Mhm.
And she's giving us a little bit of your backstory of your pre-Nairobi days. We here, and I will say we broadly, we don't know as much as we should about Centrafrique. It's not something that is a part, at least for me, it's not been a part of my thorough understanding of the continent or the stories that we have here. So tell me, what is your Centrafrique? Tell me, what is CAR to you?
To me, it's home. You know, home is the happiest place to me. It's the place where I have the greatest memory of especially like family life with my parents. But it's also the place where my most painful memories come from, you know, due to the political situation, which went kind of bad which went very, very bad in early 1996 to date. So yeah, there is good, there is bad, there is happiness, there is sadness. When I talk about it, there is a lot of anger. But yeah, it's home because it's a lot of those everything. But
if you look at those memories, what are the ones that, you know, kind of rise to the surface for you and still sit with you today?
When I looked at the food on the table, one of the things I was thinking about in my head in French, not in English, was I hope there is no rice and no
Tonight.
beans. Yeah. Because you see, I have a very bad experience with rice and bean. I don't eat rice, I don't eat beans. So usually when people invite us, my wife usually tell her friend, you know, he doesn't eat rice. But a lot of people do not know why I don't eat rice. So in 1996, actually August 96, when the war happened, and we ended up fleeing and finding ourselves in like a refugee camp and everything. For 2 weeks, they used to give buckets of rice as food. You know, it's rice and beans. So the first few days was fine. And then after that, I was just like, no, it's really ridiculous. But when you do that for 2 weeks, then rice has a very bad connotation. You know, not that it's bad food though. I know some people love rice and it's actually very tasty. But for me, I just have this relationship with it, especially white rice. I'm just like, no.
Can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it. Beans, no. No. Like the rice, I can manage to do maybe pilaus, maybe different from anything which is not white. It's fine. I can manage just to be sometimes polite. But beans, it doesn't work. It's just.
So you mentioned that so lightly about when we were in the refugee camp and they gave us this rice very lightly. Are you comfortable talking about that a bit more?
Well, I can. I come from a family where my dad used to work for the government of the time, and when we had the entire political unrest, the way it was portrayed back in the days was a region against another region, the north against the south. So my family, we come from the north of the Central African Republic, and the former president was from the south. So when we had the election in 1993, the new president was from the north, and a lot of the people from the north actually went out of the country under the former regime to study. They represented the elite of the learned people. So they occupy a lot of the engineering post and technical aspect and everything. So when this happened in 96, that was because they first had an attempted coup, the second attempted coup, and then the third attempted coup turned into like a tribal thing between the north and the south. And my dad happened to be in the government, and we used to live in an area which was the majority of the people were from the south.
Okay.
So that day, what happened? I didn't go to school as usual. So I didn't go to school and I stayed home. So there was a fraction of the army which had a mutiny, and they were going like from house to house, to steal, to find like the people who are there and kill and stuff. So the entire area was locked down. My dad couldn't access it. My mom couldn't access it. And my cousin died during that event. And so ended up fleeing the house with our watchman. And didn't know if my parents were still alive, And I think they thought I was dead also. So we ended up fleeing the home, ended up walking. I used to hate walking because it wasn't something I was used to. But we walked from different places, different areas, and used like public transport. And we found ourselves at the border with Chad, where we ended up being in a refugee camp because, my watchman became my caretaker.
And you had not been reunited with your parents at that point? No.
I didn't know anything because the only thing he used to tell me during that entire journey was just forget about the past. So it was like build a new identity. That's who you are. But in my head, I was just like.
Did you have siblings?
Yeah.
Did your siblings go with you?
No, they actually went with my mom.
Okay.
But because they went to school, so they got to be picked up. But because I didn't go to school, so no one could have access to me. And then I think some few days after that, when they had access to the house was completely looted and demolished. So now like there was my cousin's body, so it was one of those things, decomposing body, who is he, who is not, so the story was never very clear. So we found ourselves in this refugee camp, and after 2 weeks, so if you've been into a refugee camp, you have to go and sign up every day.
Yeah.
So one day when I went to sign up, the lady was like, I've seen this name. And I'm like, yeah, interesting. Then she's like, okay, come after food, and there's a woman and other kids, and I will take you to her because she has the same name as you. And so I came back in the afternoon, and that's how I was taken to my mother's tent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's my story with rice and beans.
Well, that's your story of rice and beans, and also why you should go to school.
I'm
Look at your mom.
But now I don't go to school anymore. But I will tell my son, better go to school. Just go to school.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your son, and to hear your story, first, thank you for sharing it. I don't take for granted that revisiting painful memories is not easy. But I know also you said it's also home. And it's some of those happy memories. So when you think about the stories you'll tell your son, what are the stories that you're going to pass on to him about your home and about his home?
The happiest place on earth, actually. You know what's so funny? For a country that has been going through a lot for the past 27 years, there is a certain joy. When you get to the capital, you're just like, okay, it's so messy, but it's so nice. Like people are always very, very welcoming. And I guess maybe it's because our culture is just all about, let's live today. Tomorrow is another day. And, which in some ways, it kind of...
it's true.
It kind of makes up for the bad that is happening, But, if I can tell him one thing is that's home.
It's home.
Home is home.
Thank you for sharing. That the story about being reunited with your mom, your siblings, in that immediate couple of months and years, are you able to stay together? Do you stay in Chad? Do you travel elsewhere? What happens next for you?
We stayed in Chad for a period of 2 months, I think, around that time, 2 months, 2.5 months. And we came back to the Central African Republic. because my dad managed to get a rental house and everything. So said the family, we came back. But as soon as we came back home, I did not stay.
Okay.
I actually left, I think like a month after that. Went to France.
Went to France. This is so interesting. The boy who wanted to learn English has now decided to go to France.
Yeah, because, like being French former colony, the first place to go back then was go to France. Holidays, go to France. So it was actually the first destination where my parents were like, okay, get out of the country.
That's an option.
Yeah, go somewhere.
Let me ask you that at that age, did you have feelings about that and what that might represent?
Not at all, because I was too angry.
You angry at?
At the world, at the people, at everything that happened. So for me, getting out of the country was an easy way of just leaving everything behind.
That allowed you to leave the anger behind and move on to...
Not really.
Not really. You took it with you.
Yeah, because went to France and experienced racism.
What did that look like for you?
When another human call you a monkey just because you're black is interesting. Yeah, it's very.
Was this your first experience in a non-black country?
We used to go to France quite often for holidays, but my parents were always there. So never really being exposed, as a loner, And not that, they did everything right.
Sure.
But that experience of racism was just so awful.
Of course.
So stayed a bit and then moved back to Africa. I moved to Ivory Coast.
So I wish we had time to go through like every step. We were chatting offline saying you need to write this down. You need to write this book.
Actually.
So you do, because there's so many parts of it. But in that decision to come back to the continent, was it the racism that made you think, okay, this is not my home?
Racism triggered something in me where I started asking myself one question at a very early age. Why do Africans go to Europe?
Indeed.
We go to Europe because we think it's the El Dorado. Instead of putting what we have as capital into our countries and continents, we take it out to Europe. But, the funny thing is that once you're not in a position of sustaining whatever you've put there, they take it away from you. So you come back to Africa with nothing. So for me, I was like, I can't deal with racism, but I didn't know there was xenophobia.
My heart is just breaking for you, because I'm just imagining like the young Jean, dealing with so much. I mean, your country and the challenges of war and separation, being reunited, and all of the things you do. And on top of that, you're being introduced to these incredibly huge forces of racism and xenophobia. It's a lot for anyone to take on.
You take it and you process it, and once you get over the anger, you start understanding that humans are human. One of the thing I always say is that ignorance is the root of it all.
For sure.
Because once you come into an African country and you're portrayed as a foreigner, or as you come in to take what we have, that already, of course, it will create resistance from anyone, When I went back to the Central African Republic in 2014, when we had the third coup, and then the story turned into a religious fight, because we went through like the North against the South, we went through against the North, and then we had the Muslims versus the Christians, and now we have like a whole mess of everything. So when I went back in 2014, a lot of people were looking at me and being like, yeah, you guys are the one who ran away, and now you come back. And I'm just like, well, when I was there in 97, you were not there, so you can't understand.
I think this the constant tension between the diaspora and those at home, and even those of us who are kind of in between, not really diaspora, leaving for different reasons and having to come back. There's no easy solution.
No, there's none.
But you have continued to go back. And when you went back, or your family was there in the early 2000s, your family faced yet another challenge.
Like 2003, there was another coup, actually, that got the president overthrown. So it's funny how it happened, because we came out of school at around midday, then we came back home, so seated at home. Then by 2 p.m., just gunshots and gunshots and gunshots. So that were the rebels entering the capital and taking over our power. So my mom happened to travel that time, and it was me, my dad, my elder sister, my younger brother. So we were in the house, and the following day, so one of the things that we've learned with experience of the war, when the rebels or any group come to your house, they look for your father and they look for the girls. They look for your father because that's the guy they want money from, and they will kill him. They look for the sisters because they will rape them. You know. So when I saw the guys like jumping over the fence, you know, I panicked because I was just like, oh my. You know, my dad is in the house, my sisters are here. So as much as I panicked, I had to be very friendly with them. You know. So I told my dad to hide. And the guy is so funny. So when you enter the sitting room, there is a washroom which is like on the wing. So I told him, hide, don't come out. Let me deal with those guys. So I came to the guys and I'm like, what do you guys want? There's alcohol, there are cars. So I can bring all the keys. You know, take whatever you want to take and then just go. So I told my sister, stay in the room and everything. So two of them came to the sitting room and, you know, they didn't know anything. So they saw the remote for the AC.
Okay.
And they thought it was a phone. So one of them was like, oh, I'm taking this. And I'm like, yeah, just take. There are many of them. So I can give you like a lot more. And my dad, you know, he opened the door and he was there peeping. And I turned and I saw him and I was just like, hide. You know, but it was so funny. It was so funny. But
I'm not
at
laughing,
that point,
but it's also, incredible.
Yeah, at that point I was just like, you know, if they find you, because I told them he's not in the house. And you know, now if they find him, it would have been something. And he was just peeping till they left. And then he came out and he's like, why did you give them the keys? And I'm just like,
Dad.
No, we are not going to do this. So, and they told you to hide. So I ended up like reprimanding him like a child. And then he kept quiet. And I was like,
wow.
Interesting.
Does that come back to you now as an adult? I mean, are there times where you know, we drive through Nairobi, you hear a car backfire, or you hear a sudden sound where it takes you back to those moments?
I do have nightmares sometimes. Yeah. But not as often as some few years ago or many years ago.
Do you think that's time that has helped with that?
I think it's time, and also coming to terms with that's just life. You know, we don't really choose our path. You know, because sometimes we start in different ways. But I mean, like, it's taking control of it and being like, I don't want to head into that direction. I would rather go into a better direction. So it's all about using what has happened, the experience, the bad, because there was good in the bad. Like, funny thing like that, my dad peeping, you know, that wasn't funny then. But, you know, today when I sit down, I'm just like, yeah, man, this man has put us through a lot, you know. So I laugh a lot about bad things. I laugh about death, laugh about experience, laugh about the war. But to some people, I also know who to laugh about with, you know. But my wife will tell you, my sisters will tell you, I just laugh about it, you know, because there's nothing much to do. You can't cry about it all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So you laugh about it, not because it's funny, but because, well, when you... a funny anecdote I will give you. So 2002, before the 2003 coup, one of the attempted coup that didn't work. So we end up fleeing the house, this time with my mom, my sister,
I'm having trouble keeping track of how many times you flee.
Yeah, 96, 97, 98, 2001, 2002, 2003.
Wow.
I left the country in 2007. Then there was the 2011, 2013, 2014.
I mean, I think all of us just need to pause and count our blessings, because that's extraordinary.
It is. And
but please, you were telling a story.
As we were fleeing the house, you know, I used to be a chubby kid. So we needed to cross kind of like a river. And they just put one trunk of tree which is there. So everything was catwalk.
As a bridge.
Yeah, as a bridge. So everyone was catwalking on it, and here I come. So I tried to catwalk and it didn't work. So what happened is the trunk actually rolled. So I ended up finding myself in the water. So I came out of it, and I got even angry because, not because of what is happening, but just because I was so wet. And and I got to my grandparents with my mom, and my grandma laughed at me so hard. And I looked at her and I'm like, it's not funny. And she's like, yeah, but it's funny. Just look at you. So it became one of those things that my mom, my sisters, they laugh at me about it, like, because of that. And I ended up laughing at myself, like when I sit down and I'm like, oh, I used to be such a chubby child.
I'm going to remember that story next time I have a bad day.
Yeah, imagine if there were rebels chasing us, I would have been the first one to be caught. So thank God it wasn't the case. It's just one of those things. But look, once I always give a piece of advice to people, which is never wish for things you don't know.
Yeah.
Like I hear a lot of people sometimes saying, oh, if this doesn't work, we'll go to war. And I'm like, war is not a joke. War is not a temporary thing. You know how to start it. But it never ends.
It never ends.
Because it becomes this cycle of, I've started. But, today look at it and I'm like, there is so much to do for the country. So much I want to do for my people, to do for those who are not diaspora, those who remain there, those who unfortunately couldn't even afford, like, going to Chad, for example.
What are some of the ways that you're seeing communities helping each other, or individuals like yourself?
Well, a lot of communities now are starting to revive agriculture. But one of the main issue with reviving agriculture, even in the villages, is the mines that were planted during the war. So you find a lot of women actually who've been amputated because they stepped on a mine. You have a lot of kids, and I'm talking about 3 to 7 years, who today they're lacking one leg, one arm. For me personally, looking at the region where I come from, which is the north, and which was heavily hit with the war and the mines and everything, it's actually coming up with a foundation, to help the people. A way of educating those who don't have access to education, a way of also putting women together so that agriculture is not just to put food on the table, but rather a mean of, generating revenues, taking care of themselves and giving back to them and showing them that, look, your community, your home is your home. So people, I believe that the more people are busy, the less people will be accepting like $1 to go and kill their neighbors, because I have something to lose. I have my farm, so my neighbor maybe is the one who's providing water for my farm. So if I kill him, how will my farm survive? So create that belonging sense. And that we can't sort it out, but we can fix some few things.
Absolutely, and may God bless the work of your hands, because you're right. We can't fix everything, but we can sort out a few things. That's where we can start.
And if we can touch 10 families, trust me.
Absolutely.
That's a big beginning. Then maybe one day they will tell the story about this guy who fell inside the river and came and helped us.
This chubby kid.
This chubby kid. Imagine. Not too chubby these days.
Not too chubby. Looking good.
Yeah, thank you.
Wangari Maathai, what did she say? I'll be a hummingbird. I don't know if you know that saying, but I think it reminds me of what you're saying. I'll be a hummingbird. I'll do my part. Sometimes we like to play little games on this show. And I played a game recently with my daughters called Your Mother Tried As Hard As She Could. And I asked them, like, how hard did I try, or how well did I succeed about certain areas? And they told me whether or not I succeeded or failed. And it was very humbling game to play. So I'm going to give you another game to play, similar, but not about your mom. But it's going to be called Who Does It Better? Okay. Kenya or Centrafrique? Okay.
I hope my wife is not going to be upset.
Your wife is in the audience, so that's between you and her. And of course, it's a Nairobian audience, so we'll don't look at their eyes. Just focus on me. I'm not from Kenya, so I'm neutral. I'm a neutral party here, even though Nairobi is home. So I'm going to give you a sentence, and you tell me who does it better, Kenya or CAR Centrafrique. Am I saying it correctly, though? By the way, Centrafrique. Yeah. First question: who serves the tastiest nyama choma?
Centrafrique.
Wow. Oh. Again, don't look at the audience. We just continue with our game. So 1 point for Centrafrique,
yes.
0 for Kenya. Who can outdance the other in a traditional dance-off?
Centrafrique.
Wow, Centrafrique. I'm noticing a pattern here. Okay, 2 for Centrafrique, 0 for Kenya. Oh, I don't know if this game was a good idea. Okay, who rocks the most stylish outfits? Now think carefully. Look around the room, see how people are. Look at these threads. People are looking nice. Look at the fresh. Look at your wife.
My wife is not considered Kenyan at this point right now.
At this point right now, she's not. This is a game.
She's migrated.
Okay, she's migrated. Okay. Yeah. So who's the most stylish?
Centrafrique, I will say.
What? Okay, so we're up. Now Kenya's losing 3-0 for the first time ever, possibly against Centrafrique in any kind of game ever. Okay, who has the quirkiest roadside attractions? And I would like an example, perhaps, of one in Centrafrique. Like one here in Kenya, we might say, if you're going towards CBD, for example, you could buy a Monopoly game. You could buy bananas. You could buy a mosquito zapper. You could buy multiple things, right? So on the roads in Bongi.
On the side of the road, one of the dominant things we have are like actually bars.
Bars?
Yeah.
On the side of the... While you're driving?
Yeah.
A drive-through bar?
I mean, they're just there on the side of the road, like very interesting structures.
Okay, so I have a feeling then who does it better?
Actually,
this question
Kenya.
will be... It's Kenya!
Yeah,
all right,
Kenya.
Let's give Kenya finally gets a point.
Actually, Kenya.
I was sweating about whether or not this podcast is going to have me cancelled in Kenya. Okay, who prepares the spiciest and most fiery dish?
Centrafrique.
It has to be Centrafrique. Kenyans do not believe in spice. I'm sorry, I said it. It's true. I'm sorry. What do you have that's spicy in this country?
I mean, there's Royco.
There's Royco. Royco does not count. Royco does not count. Is there anything else? I don't know. Anyways, we'll discuss off mic because the crowd is hostile. Okay. Who can come up... I did not write this question. Who can come up with the most interesting names for local dishes?
Ooh, I will say Kenya.
Kenya, yes. What's your favorite name for a local dish?
Don't have many. I can't think of any, but we don't have interesting names for...
I like the Rolex. Is that something that just my kids are into?
Isn't Rolex like Uganda?
Rolex, yeah. Yeah, but we also, my kids also, or maybe they've just adopted it. Their car is saying Uganda. But okay, so anyways, Kenya got the point. So now it's getting close. Is it 2-4 or 2-3?
I think it's 2-3.
Is it 2-3? Yeah. Okay, let's see. That might have been the last one. Let's see if we need one more just to tie it up. Okay, let's do this. Given an unlimited budget and unlimited time off from work, where's the best place to holiday?
Where's the best place to holiday? Be
honest.
Honestly?
Yes.
I will say home, Centrafrique. But
there's a but. Okay.
Given the insecurity and the different rebel groups and everything, you can't visit. Like you can't. It's not like you can take a drive. Like
sorry, that was a bit of a sensitive question. Yeah. Insensitive of me.
So I will give it to Kenya because, I mean, everything is okay for you to roam around. Yeah. So I think we've ended in a tie. Yeah, okay. I think we've ended in a tie. That's why I'm 50-50.
That's why you're 50-50, yeah.
So I'm home there and I'm home here.
Even me. I'm home there and I'm home here.
So you see.
That's how most of these conversations end, to be honest with you.
So it's 50-50.
All right. This is a biased crowd.
I'm telling you, very biased.
Crowd.
Very biased.
Yes. We need a tiebreaker. If you have it... Okay.
Sorry?
So here's your tiebreaker question. I heard it.
Sorry?
Okay, your preference.
Could you say it
Kenyan
in French,
Kenyan women or Centrafrique? How do you say female? Femme?
Femmes.
Femme?
Les femmes kenyanes ou les femmes
Oui,
centrafricaines?
oui.
That's that's not a question
It's not a question.
I can answer.
Oh, you better answer. I think you should answer this
No,
one, actually.
I can't answer because
Okay.
my heart is in Kenya. So
Okay, yes.
I can't go with my
So
eyes.
it
I
sounds
go
like
with my
Kenya
heart.
is the winner of this game. Don't worry. According to our data, we don't have any listeners yet in Centrafrique. So mostly the listeners are here
Maybe
in
now
Nairobi.
you will
But
start
maybe
having.
now. Maybe now. I
Maybe
hope
now.
that would be a joy.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, I have to ask you one question because you did end up in Nairobi. It's been home for 15 years. You said your heart is here. Tell us about how you met your heart, your lovely wife and Njoki.
I think I have to use a very sexy voice. So Njoki is this
Yes, let's do it. Because how did the
How did I
Centrafrique
meet-
become?
how did I
the
meet Njoki?
East Afrique. How do you say East in French?
L'Afrique de l'Est.
Yeah.
Est.
How did the
How
Lest
did
and
how did
the Centre
Centre,
come together? Yeah.
Interesting story. So one of the days that I decided to try the Kenyans nyama choma, right? So
Why are you putting Nyama Choma in air quotes for those who are only listening to this?
because we don't call it nyama choma.
What do you call it?
We call it mishui.
And you okay? Fine. Anyways, carry on. Let me not
So
let me not bother you with
so
your
the
story.
day I decided
Okay.
to try that, I went for, actually it was a barbecue event, and then I went for the event, and then I saw this beautiful girl. She was wearing a yellow jumpsuit
Okay.
with a big hat,
Okay.
And I looked at her, but I didn't know how to go and talk to her because, gosh, she had attitude, like
Aha.
attitude.
She was not giving that welcoming,
No,
sunshiny
no,
yellow
no,
vibe.
not at all.
No.
Not-
Aha.
Very bad attitude. Like, don't
I'm
talk
learning
to me
something
type of
about my
attitude.
friend Njoki. Okay.
So I decided to do what I do best. I sent one of my friends to go and talk to our friend.
Listen, that's the way we still do. Apparently, kids do it online now, but that's still the way.
That's called
Send your
liaison.
friend,
You
yeah.
have to liaise people.
Liaison.
Yeah.
We
We have to liaise people. So my friend talked to our friend, and then my friend came back to me and said that it was on a Saturday, that apparently on a Tuesday we were going to go for a coffee date with Njoki and a friend. Did it happen? No, it never happened.
What happened? She cancelled.
I think she didn't buy into going for coffee.
Wow.
So I said, okay, fast forward to 2020 when COVID happened and we were all just sitting idle. In July, my friend told me, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing much, but we can go for lunch. So I invite my friend, he comes for lunch, and he comes with this young lady. And I look at her, I'm like, who is she? And he's like, oh, you don't remember last year? We met them at that event. And then I asked the friend, where's your friend? And she's like, oh, my friend is at home. And I'm like, she has a boyfriend. She's like, no, very single. And I'm like, good, even me, I'm very single.
Here we are.
So we decided to meet, I think the following week for lunch or something. And Njoki came so late.
Wow.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole podcast, I think, conversation just
yeah.
about this relationship.
And I'm telling you, it will take you
Aha.
10 episodes because it's quite a lot.
So maybe you need your own episode.
Yeah.
It could be something like Centrafrique meets, how did you call it again, East?
Centrafrique, la rencontre entre le centre et l'est.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to
Yeah.
say.
That's
That's what you should call it, a
Yeah.
10-episode series arc.
I think when we
Yes.
come back in September, we can do like
Let's do it.
We can do a special edition.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, last two questions we ask all of our listeners before
Yeah.
we let them go. Nice and easy breezy. What is your favorite drink?
My favorite drink right now.
Right now, anytime.
No, it keeps on evolving.
Mm.
I think right now I enjoy gin
Okay.
for a very simple
Just
reason.
straight up.
Mixed with something, but the reason why I came about enjoying gin is because of my father-in-law.
Okay.
So it became
yeah.
a bonding thing, actually.
Oh, that's kind
so
of nice.
yeah, so it became my drink of choice.
Did you try the hibiscus gin cocktail today?
No, I decided not to try anything before sitting
Before
on
the
chair.
recording,
Yeah.
but now we drink.
Yeah,
now we
can.
drink.
Yeah,
Okay.
Now we can.
And the last question, this show is all about joy and justice. That's what we really focus on in Salam and Hello. So I want to know, before we let you go, what is bringing you joy in your life today?
there are many components which all link together, one of the biggest things that bring me joy today is my family. I think there's nothing else that can be compared to that. And secondly, the inclusivity I get in the environment where I live. I get really affected being someone who's been to many different countries, many continents. If there's one thing that really can make me sad is having the feeling of being rejected or sidelined, and which is actually a feeling that hits you hard when you're in Africa because you're black. So you look at Africans, and when we can't be together as Africans, but also when you look at humans in general and be like, why can't we just be together? It doesn't matter. You can be yellow, purple, pink, but as long as you're human, why can't we be together? So I think like my joy is a lot in the feeling of being inclusive and genuine. Not just like anything, but like genuine. I think I find a lot of joy in that. And then of course like there's my profession and everything else and meeting new people.
So grateful to have you on Salam and Hello.
It's been a pleasure.
Such a joy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Now that we are done, we can go and have
now we can have a gin.
the gin. So but thank you though.
Thank you so much. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Jean. I mean, really, what a joy to have somebody share their story. So complex, back and forth, in and out, but a story of love and ultimately of being rooted in this place. So we'd love to hear from you. You can always reach us on our socials at Salam and Hello on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I almost forgot the last place. Instagram. And of course, we always love to hear from you in a personal message. Lilly at salamandhello.com or producer at salamandhello.com. And thank you to the live audience for all of you being here and your energy. And thank you all for this beautiful, beautiful season that we've had together. We will miss you, but not too much because we need a break. But we can't wait to see you again in September. So until then, all of our love, and we'll see you soon.